I'm Karin. Welcome to my world. This is part 3 after a abrupt stop to part 2 about how I came from being a linear person to a multidimensional person. I was getting interested in past life regression where you can visit your other lives in a trance and through those visits heal different things that might trouble you in this life. I came across books by Michael Newton, who had worked with cases where he transported people back even further to between life between lives, which would be connecting to the soul before it actually chose the body, and while it was in the between state, the soul, and talk to guides and soul groups and whatever. And I wanted to work more with that, and it was really expensive to get a life between life regression. So I thought, oh, why don't I just get an education? Why don't I just take regression therapy training? And I did, alongside with going through the 3 Reiki initiations, and alongside with doing all sorts of other things. So I trained as a regression therapist. I didn't actually do life between life, so I didn't get that part. But working with people, taking them back to past lives, was really interesting to me. There's been a lot of debate, and you can argue a lot if it's real or if it's something you make up. And it can feel like something you make up. I absolutely agree. And the question is, do you trust it as fact or do you not? I would say in the terms of regression therapy, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you feel it's something you make up or if you feel it's real and valid impressions, because it works. And if it works for you, it doesn't matter what it is you're seeing as long as it works. That's my position on it. What I remember very vividly that absolutely convinced me was one client I had who, after the past life regression was taken, guided by me, to a sort of sacred space where she could meet with whomever she wanted to meet, and she suddenly started crying. And she said, "Oh my God, my sister, I have missed you so much." And it was just so heartfelt, and it was so moving, and I was looking at my notes like crazy. Because before I started, I would ask what the family members are in this life, because there can be connections. And there was nothing about a sister. No one word. And she was crying, and she was mentally hugging the sister that she hadn't seen, and she was missing her so bad. And I thought, okay, what sister? So when she was out of the trance and we went over what she had experienced, it was not someone she knew in this life. That sister was from another life. And had I had any doubts, the intensity of the reunion between these 2 souls absolutely won me over. What happened was that, and during this time I was traveling a lot, I was doing energy work in other countries, I was working with crystals, I was guiding meditations, I was creating my own meditations, I was regularly using a guided meditation where you met your spirit guide. So I had so much going on. And I know that from the looks, so there were a couple of people around me who thought that, oh my goodness, she is gonna fly off into the air like a little balloon with no grounding at all, and next we know we're gonna visit her in the psychiatric hospital being mental. But I felt quite comfortable that what I was doing made sense, and it felt like I was doing a crash course, catching up on everything I ever knew from other lives. And it was a bit like a ball of yarn after a kitten has played with it. It was one big mess, but I was sorting it out. I was just doing it very fast. And once I had the yarn disentangled, everything fell into place for me. I did have a moment during that time where I felt my higher self was asking me, do you want to continue with this? I was standing in an open space in Copenhagen where I lived, suddenly stopped thinking, where am I heading with this? Because I used to have a normal job. I don't anymore. I used to talk about normal 3D things. I don't anymore. I used to hang out with other multidimensional friends, and I don't even do that anymore. So where am I heading? And do I want to do this? The information that I felt came to me was that I could still turn back. It was still time to give it all up, go back, have a normal life, and it would look like I just had been a little crazy, dreaming a bit, but I would be back in place and people around me would basically be happy and content. So did I want to turn around? And I thought for about a fraction of a second. I said, no, are you kidding? No way. And from that comes another story. But what I learned during this time as well was early lessons in keeping my mouth shut. Because I didn't know anything. I had not read New Age books before I started on this journey. I absolutely no knowledge. I did not know the Ascended Masters' names. I came in as a completely blank piece of paper. I read a lot during a couple of years, and I started talking about Ascended Masters and name drop Lady Nada and Sananda and whatever with the other people who read the same books. But from the beginning, I was blank. And quite early on, I love the inspiration for things that I felt, okay, this would be really nice if I could do this, came from things I read. So I would read about someone who could see things in people and help them heal better that way. I thought that would be cool. That would be really useful. So during a healing, I was doing a Reiki healing, one of the early ones, I sort of sent up a thought driven by the energy I was in and asked for that ability. Could I do that? And what came from that was that since that day, I was able to see the maturity of a soul in a color code. And I told a friend about that. Luckily, she was a friend who had sort of been there and done that, and whom was no longer name dropping anything, just getting along with her very compassionate work with people with stress. And I said, you know, this is interesting. I can do this, and I can see the colors, and I can see the maturity. And she just kind of looked at me and said, you know, that's not a common thing to be able to do. And I thought, oh, okay. I didn't know that. I would talk to someone and he asked me about who my spirit guide was, and I said, well, that's Sananda. And he looked at me a bit condescending and said, yeah, well, you know, it can happen, but it's rare. I would tell a group of people about this amazing healing modality from Atlantis that was given to me by Lady Nada in a meditation. And they would look at me and remove themselves, you know, as far away as they could. So I learned to start to keep quiet. Because apparently what I was tapping into, what I was reconnecting to, what I was learning, was not even fitting into the New Age boxes. Because to me, all those books and all those healing modalities and all the rules for how to do things and in what sequence and what symbols and whatever, that ended up to be just another box. Not a linear one, but still a box. And apparently I was picking up all sorts of stuff that didn't fit. And I felt that I didn't fit. So what I did basically was start to keep quiet. I wrote books about my experiences during those years. They're comfortably sitting on my hard disk, having a nice long sleep. But I wrote it down while I still remembered, which was probably a good idea. And I moved on. I stopped writing. I stopped really talking to people about these things, except in very rare cases where I would be on a one-on-one talk with someone, and I would start just do a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, and we would get into really interesting, intense talks. But mostly I just kept quiet. I got on with my life. I raised my kids. I tried to figure out a way to make a living that didn't involve anything multidimensional or esoteric, and just shut my mouth. And at some point, when a person asks me why you're not writing books anymore, and I say, well, my life is now 80% boring and 20% too weird, so I don't really feel like writing about that. And with this ends part 3, and I think I'm gonna do a part 4 in just a short while, so thank you for now.